Hi everyone, I am Cemal Yiğit. Welcome to News in Focus, Nigeria. Education is one of the most important things in, I believe, every person's life. The main duty and purpose of human life is to seek understanding. And the effort of doing so is called education. And today we have a very important person, an appropriate person to talk about education, what it is, how it is implemented here in Nigeria. Here is my guest, joined with me today, former Permanent Secretary, Federal Minister of Education, Dr. Macjohn Nowabiola. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
How are you today?
I'm fine.
Thank you very much for joining us
Thank
today.
you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. Could you please briefly tell us your former posts and how long you have been in education field, and so that we could know what you did before?
Thank you very much. I served as a Federal Permanent Secretary in the country, that's in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for about 5 years, Out of those 5 years, I was the Permanent Secretary in the Federal Ministry of Education for about 3 years, approximately 3 years. First of all, my going to the ministry was not a coincidence. I have the qualifications to be the Permanent Secretary in that ministry. I have a PhD, a Doctor of Philosophy in Educational Psychology. And also, I have, over the years, been involved in the design of programs for children particularly. And when I look at education, I look at education from what you call the rights perspective. Education is the right, the very right of every child. And every child has the right to acquire good education. So I was in the Ministry of Education for approximately 3 years as a Permanent Secretary.
The education throughout your life that you had was here in Nigeria?
Yes, I schooled in Nigeria, even though I had a short, brief education in the University of Bradford in the UK. But my first degree was at the University of Ife, Nigeria. It is now called Obafemi Awolowo University. And I graduated from that university in 1979. Then I went for my master's degree program in the University of Lagos in 1986. And then in 2005, 2006, I graduated with a PhD in the Bayero University, Kano, which means my education, so to say, has been completely in Nigeria. But that is also to say that apart from the normal education, you know, education has different ramifications.
Throughout your life,
yes,
then you have witnessed all the transformation and everything
yes,
during the years.
I have attended so many conferences, educational conferences, so many conferences on the promotion of rights to education across various areas of the globe. And those have, in so many ways, added to my experience in the area of education.
Okay, I was planning to go ahead and ask you a different question, but since we mentioned now the old days and now, so I think I would like to begin the discussion with this question. You know, a lot of people go ahead and say this, especially after some certain age. Back then, the education in Nigeria was super, great, fantastic. That's who I am, depends on the education that I got back then. So what happened? Where did Nigeria miss the train, or what happened and how it, according to those who say so, got worse?
What I will say, in our days, we had the best. And when you say the best, there were a lot of factors that led to our having the best. It's like what is happening globally now. Globally, there are challenges in area, be it in the education sector, be it in the health sector, be it in the area of environment, in the area of governance and all that. There are a lot of challenges. And a lot of those challenges, like I look at myself when we went to school. The school environment was very conducive. We were not too many in the classrooms, both at the secondary school and at the university level. The teachers were there for us. The teachers mentored us, they guided us to do our work. And the teachers were, not only were they trained, they were very, very dedicated.
So what made them being so dedicated?
Because they were highly respected, they were well trained, they were well paid, and apart from teaching in the classroom, they also played other roles in the community. They were reference points. People
they
came
were role
to,
models.
Yes, people came to take advice from them. Even in those days, you remember that even teachers used to, if you want to write a letter to your son outside your community, sometimes it is the teacher that you invite to write the letter that you will post to your child or to your relation. Those times have changed. You know, with the population explosion, Nigeria's population currently is about 170 million.
Okay.
If you look at the trend in terms of governance, in terms of policies, there is a lot of pressure on the various sectors. Like I said, not only in education, in all the sectors.
Education is one of them,
Yes,
obviously.
and that is what is happening. You have too many young people that want to go to school, whether at the basic level or at the tertiary level. And yet, the institutions we have are not enough to absorb them. Secondly, you will also recognize that teachers of today are not given the same recognition as teachers of yesterday. If you take a statistics or you look around the country, you see that teachers are owed a lot of salaries. Teachers have not been paid. Some states have not paid teachers for 6 months, for 1 year.
Strikes are also to be mentioned.
Yes, exactly. Now, how do you expect that teacher who has not been paid, who is not recognized, who is not appreciated, how do you expect that teacher to give?
So in the society then, compared to back,
Yes,
the reputation of the teacher or being teacher?
It was totally different.
Okay.
Teachers were respected and appreciated. And the teacher had a worth in terms of personal worth. It was a pride for you to be a teacher. But those times have changed. And it is very important for us to begin to think of what to do.
And back then, I think the admission
policy was different.
The admission policy was very
different.
You know, according to merit.
Yes.
It was now strictly implemented.
Strictly on merit. And now, because of the population of those seeking admission, we have a centralized admission board, JAMB.
Okay.
But in my own days, you could sit for 3 different universities. Mm-hmm. You sit for the exam, and you are tested on the aptitude of the course you want to read.
I understand.
And of course, very importantly, your West African School Certificate or your London GCE must be good. You must have English.
Along with JAMB.
Yes, you must have mathematics. In addition to the relevant subjects that will lead to the course you want to read. So things have changed, and we are still looking at how it might not, you might not totally bring back the yesterday, but I think there is an opportunity, a lot of opportunities for us to improve on what we have today.
When we say back, it's usually before 1999, before the eruption of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Yeah.
So that tells me Nigeria was under military tutelage, military coups and military governments, and which paid maybe strict attention to education, and that was heavily controlled by government, and the result was great. But something got loose when the democracy established. Would you agree on that?
No, I don't agree. You see, before the advent of military rule in Nigeria, we had democracy. Nigeria gained independence in 1960. And between 1960, the military took over in 1966. That was when we had the first coup. So between 1960 and 1966, Nigeria ran a parliamentary system of government.
All right.
So it was civilians that were ruling. You had the great Zik, you had the Sardauna of Sokoto, you had Ahmadu Bello, you had Awolowo, you had Emai Obarai, and all that. These were great icons, leaders that Nigeria produced, nationalists that believed in this country, and they worked to ensure that Nigeria remains one peaceful, developed country.
And education was
during
a great
that time,
tool
education, yes, education
use
was
for that matter.
Education was also had the best. You had a lot of Nigerians. That was when some of these old generation universities were established. You had Ahmadu Bello in the north. You had University of Nigeria and Nsukka in the east. You had University of Ibadan, which is the first university in Nigeria, in Ibadan. You had the University of Ife, and then you had all those universities. Our leaders then had great vision.
Okay.
And that was why they established some of these institutions. And those institutions produce great minds that contributed to development of this country. So it was not just during the military. Before the advent of the military, education was doing very, very well.
Do you believe that the missionary schools also played a certain role?
Yes.
In terms of contribution, not necessarily, religious quotation.
Very much, very much. In those days, like I went to a mission school. In those days, you had mission schools, you had private schools owned by private individuals that believed in education. You had a lot of mission schools, but after a while, the mission schools were taken over by government to manage. But mission schools were scattered all over the country. They were sponsored by either religious organizations or private individuals. And for you to even gain admission into a mission school or a private school, it was very difficult. The schools at that point, the private schools and the mission schools, went for the very, very best. And when you go to those schools, apart from some of the federal government colleges, like King's College, Queen's College, that were owned by government,
like
but
they
could
were in
compete.
Lagos, right?
Yes, Queen's College and Queen's College is in Lagos. There were other schools, other unity schools that are over 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, that were also established then, that have produced great Nigerian leaders that are still around. Those schools were the best. And some of them are still there, but their performance and the environment is totally different.
And that contributed to Nigerians' education immensely.
Yes, exactly.
The literacy rate, and in relation with that rate, how about the number of the students who are enrolled in government schools? And if it's low, why is it low? And what are your thoughts on that?
The truth is that majority of our students are still in government schools, because the private schools are not as many as the government schools. Government has a policy where schools are located in communities where children don't have to go too far. For instance, if it's at basic education. Even at secondary, even at tertiary education, there's also an attempt to locate schools where it would not be difficult for students to go far from their homes to school. So if you look at the statistics, majority of our children in Nigeria are still in government schools. But you also have many of them in private schools. The private schools take the heat of government schools because some of them provide very high quality education. We also have relationships with other countries that have established schools in Nigeria. For instance, our relationship with Turkey. We have the Turkish International College here.
They are private.
Yes, it's a private, and it takes in a lot of Nigerians. And the performance of these schools are very, very recognized, and they are good.
But these private schools must
Yes.
follow the Nigerian Ministry of
course,
Education curriculum.
yes, there are rules, there are policies, there are guidelines for these schools to operate.
So though they are private and maybe international, opened by some other countries,
Yes.
indigenous people, but still yet they are
They
in the sense of
yes,
operating
they operate
curriculum-wise,
in the
they are
Nigerian-
Nigerians.
They operate in the Nigerian environment, and when you are in Rome, like they say, you behave like the Romans.
I
So they operate within the guidelines, the policies, and programs of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And how is their contribution to the education in Nigeria?
You see, in terms of when you look at access and quality, which are two key ingredients when you talk of education, these schools, like I said, they take the heat off government schools because they take also a reasonable number of students. Give them good quality. When you talk of quality, they give them good quality education. So in so many ways, they are contributing to the growth, the development, access and quality of education in Nigeria.
I understand. Nigerians, they are very well known and they are very well traveled people. And a lot of Nigerians are traveling abroad to gain education.
Yes.
And actually, that's really interesting because in United States, in UK, in some European countries, there are a lot of Nigerians who are working there as a skilled people, as doctors and teachers, and they are actually contributing to those countries' developments.
Yes.
And how come they are not here? And some of them also educated here and they travel. So what is the thing that we cannot keep them here in Nigeria in order to make them contribute the development of their own country?
You see, when you ask that question, you must also look at the population of Nigeria. Nigerians are all over the world. When you look at our population, there's no way that all the educated Nigerians, all the specialists, Nigerian specialists in different countries of the world can come home to Nigeria. Not that they are not coming, but the truth is that some of them must also stay outside the country to contribute.
But especially the sectors that you need them, like health, like education, you definitely need that brain here in Nigeria.
We need them, but we also need them to also acquire a lot of experience in these other countries.
I see.
And then they come home to apply the experiences and the knowledge they have acquired to national development and growth. Now, we have a lot of people outside the country. And one of the things that governments over the years have done is to encourage Nigerians in diaspora, especially those that are well educated, to come home and contribute to national development. But one of the things that I will say that I have seen and I know that is happening, there are groups of Nigerian professionals in different countries. They identify with the challenges in the country, maybe in the area of health, in the area of education. They organize themselves from time to time at different periods to come home to provide services. For instance, if it is in the area of health, they come, they do a lot of services, ophthalmological services, cardiographic services, and all that. They do it for a while. They also try to pass knowledge to train the Nigerians that are on the ground. Not only that, they also import a lot of equipment.
Okay.
You know, like equipment for dialysis and all that. They collectively, at no cost, they bring them into the country, they donate them to different areas of need. So it is good that they are there.
It is good to have Nigerians
but
being
it will
exposed
also
to
be,
experience
yes,
abroad.
but it will also be good for them to, most of them, to begin to be focused to come home. Sometimes they worry about the environment. You understand? But the truth is that we must all come together. We must be able to make adjustments as required to enable us live in this country, contribute and believe in Nigeria, and believe that Nigeria can be one of the best countries that you can live in.
Wonderful. Sir, in Nigeria, Christians, Muslims, even some other beliefs religions exist. And along with religions, ethnicities, hundreds of them, languages, hundreds of them. And I believe these make education to be implemented by the educators very difficult. So how are you coping with these issues, and what would be your advice to educators when it comes to those sensitive matters?
In Nigeria, the national policy on education provides the framework for education, be it at the federal, be it at the state level. And you must also recognize that basic education is mainly the responsibility of state and local governments. The federal government focuses more on tertiary education. Even though a lot of states are also into tertiary education, there are state-owned universities. Private individuals are also encouraged. The National Universities Commission gives approval and licenses to a lot of private universities. Now, when you look at our environment, our culture, our religious beliefs, our mannerisms, our values, and all that, you cannot pretend that they don't have an impact, you know, in the area of education. For instance, when you look at the issue of girl child education, girl child education has a lot of challenges when you place it in the northern part of the country.
Right.
In the south, in the east, you also have challenges of boy child education. In the east, what happens is that a lot of boys prefer to either learn a trade or be involved in other businesses than to go into schools. So you have more girls in schools in the east where I come from. Then in the north, not too many girls have the opportunity of going to school due to certain cultural and religious practices. There are issues of girls being married off in the north at an early stage. And if a parent has the opportunity of, you have a girl and you have a boy, you ask that parent in the north, especially the uneducated or the illiterate parents, between the boy and the girl, who would you want to go to school? Definitely it will be the boy. So that places the girl child at a big disadvantage. So the girl child education in Nigeria, and particularly in the north, is a very serious issue. And when you educate girls, when you educate women, you are not just educating that girl, you are educating the whole family.
The whole family, yes.
You are educating the whole community. And when girls are empowered, when girls are given the opportunity, when they have the best, they also bring out the best. You see that their families are well organized, their families are healthier, their children go to school, and you move them out of that cycle of poverty.
So what's the response of Nigerians so far?
A lot is going on. Many in the north, a lot of schools, particularly for girls, are being established. The school environment is being made more conducive for girls to learn. You also have the opportunity, a lot of female teachers, if a lot of female teachers are being trained consciously to bridge the gap,
I see.
and for them to teach in some of these schools. When these young girls see their female teachers, they have more confidence.
Wonderful.
And then they prefer to, this affects both the enrollment and the retention rates in these schools. And a lot of non-governmental organizations are involved in a lot of advocacy, in a lot of sensitization. You understand? And then there are programs where not just the girl going to school, there are incentives that are provided. If you allow your girl child to go to school, maybe you gain something. For instance, the issue of conditional cash transfers. Maybe one of the conditions must be that your girl child or your children must be enrolled in schools. So there are a lot of programs that are ongoing.
I see.
In some states, special scholarships are provided for girls to enable them go to school. And even at the federal level, there is also that focus to say, don't tilt scholarships towards a particular group. Let it be balanced. And sometimes the girls are even encouraged to focus on subjects like science, mathematics, engineering. A lot of attention is going into those areas. But I know that there is a lot of advocacy. And in the North, we are not there yet, but with continuous enlightenment, a lot of parents will send their girl child to school.
Well, my question is about religion, actually. I have been to some schools in Nigeria, and what I saw was great, because I see Muslim students were doing their own prayers, while Christian students doing their own. So here in Nigeria, is the liberalism adopted when it comes to practicing religion in schools?
We don't want to talk too much about the dichotomy, the religious dichotomies in education in Nigeria. But one of the things that I will tell you is that you will discover that a lot of our leaders went to schools where you had both Muslim and religion. There are a lot of people that I know that are highly placed, that are full Muslims, that went to Catholic schools.
Okay.
That is the truth. And I know that there are Christians that also went to Muslim schools. So we don't place too much emphasis on religion, but religious studies are taught in schools. You can decide whether to take the Muslim religion or the Christian religion. But as far as I know, the issue of religion being practiced in schools, when I say practiced, not being taught, has never created any problem in this country. And that's the way we want it to be. We see Nigerians as one, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian.
I see.
And the truth is that when you study the holy books,
Okay.
you discover, I believe you are Muslims, but we are Christians. When you study the Bible and the Quran, you see a lot of similarities.
Right.
A lot of similarities. And when we take that into consideration, you just know that mankind is the same. Mankind is the same. It is only when people want to create problems, people want to be divisive, people want to project things that are not to the growth of this country. They start talking of religious divides here and there. But as far as I'm concerned, Nigeria is one, and we should continue to focus and project on those positive values that will keep us together as a country.
Then we could say the way that Boko Haram paralyzed some of the states or some of the cities in the northern part of the country then it's sheerly stemming from lack of education and ignorance.
Yes.
Then which should be addressed again.
Exactly.
And the only way to address it is again to
Yes.
re-energize the education in
Yes.
those places.
A lot is happening. Some of us worry so much about the disruption in education in some of these northern parts of the country. But it is good that the consciousness has been created. A lot of support, a lot of innovations are going on, including the international community
Right.
coming in to see how we can help rebuild some of those schools that were destroyed and to reintegrate our children, especially those that have been internally displaced, to put them back to schools. There are a lot of things. For instance, while I was in the Ministry of Education, in some of the states where we had these issues, a lot of the students from the state schools there were very systematically distributed to the federal government colleges, the colleges you call the unity colleges. And they are all there learning. There was an arrangement
Right.
where they were distributed and taken into all these schools. So it is also good that the insurgency is reducing. A lot of the schools there are reopening.
Reopening.
And the Safe School initiative being supported by the international community is also taking its roots. And we believe that gradually the disruptions that happened we will recover. But it is not something that will happen immediately. It will be a systematic and gradual process. And I believe that the present government is very, very highly committed to ensure that we have peace in those areas and that our children go back to school. I know that the 19 northern governors have taken it as a priority and they're working towards it. Because without education, you cannot develop.
Right.
And our children that are there today are the building blocks. They are the future of this great country.
For sustainable development,
Yes,
education
exactly.
is the key element.
It's very
Without
key.
it,
And
we
you
will
know,
collapse.
you know that the Millennium Development Goals era is gone. This is 2015. We are now talking of sustainable development goals.
Right.
And very soon, these goals will be endorsed by the United Nations. And it will be now left for countries to begin to implement. And a lot of us look forward towards implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the roles that we can play to achieve results in Nigeria.
So let's talk about teachers a little bit. What is the role of the teachers, and how could they be more involved in the education journey of Nigeria?
Let me just say that the ratio, whether it's in the tertiary education or in basic education, the ratio of teachers to students is very, very low.
I see.
It is very, very low.
So this unqualified teachers,
Yes,
merit
you have
issues
a
and
lot of,
everything,
some people
so-
just go into teaching because there's nothing else to do. So you see that they are not fully committed. Though there are teachers that are fully committed, but a lot of them go to teach because you don't have
Anything else
anything else. Even when I was in the Ministry of Education, you see young people that read education and they are recruited by the Federal Civil Service Commission to go and teach. Once they are given their letters of employment, a lot of them now come back to the ministry. They don't want to go to the classrooms. They want to be in the offices.
Oh, okay.
And of course, we have a policy that can never happen.
I understand.
At least I can say for myself, throughout my stay, you can't be recruited as a teacher or as an education officer and then you want to stay in the office. So all of them are sent to teach. However, like I said, the ratio of teachers is very low. Qualified teachers are not too many. And then the incentives, the salary of teachers, the incentives, the right environment is not there for them. I therefore believe that for us to make a headway to improve on learning outcomes, to improve on the quality of our education, teachers hold the key. We must focus on our teachers. We must focus on their professional development. We must focus on their retraining. We must focus on their incentives. And we must find a way of attracting young, brilliant students, brilliant scholars to the teaching profession. For instance, will it be out of place to say anybody that wants to read education, you have a special scholarship for the duration of your studies? If you want to improve yourself, you want to do a master's program in teaching the area of education or a PhD, there are special scholarships for you. Those are things that we could do both at federal and at the state level. And I will still recommend that as a country, we should organize a national summit on teachers.
Okay.
Not a national teachers summit, a national summit on teachers, where all the stakeholders, including our friends from outside the country, including Nigerians in diaspora, we can come together to talk about our teachers. How do we use teachers effectively to improve the quality of education? How do we ensure that the value of our teachers, their self-esteem, the way they see themselves, that we get those glory days back? And I can tell you that if Mr. President decides, and I would recommend it to him, decides to host the National Summit on Teachers, it will be a great success, and it will be an entry point into his focus in the area of education. Let us not worry about the cost.
I see.
I sincerely believe
that is worth it.
I sincerely believe that if government and Mr. President is ready to host that summit, a lot of development partners, a lot of UN organizations, a lot of philanthropic organizations will be ready to support and sponsor that kind of summit. And we recommend it very, very seriously to Mr. President.
Dr. Macjohn, former Permanent Secretary of Federal Minister of Education, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much.
A school may be considered as a library that offers an elixir that can prevent or heal the ills of life. Those who have the knowledge and wisdom to prepare and administer it are the teachers. And hopefully, Nigerians will have those schools and the teachers in those schools. See you on the next edition.